The bodyguard's knees buckled and he hit the hallway floor with his hands still pressed against his jaw, blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. And every sound inside Frank Sinatra's suite stopped at once. Wait, because what John Wayne did in the next 60 seconds would empty that room, end the party, and create a silence between two Hollywood legends that wouldn't break for 13 years. The phone had rung 4 times before anyone picked up. Wayne pressed the receiver closer, kept his voice level. "This is John Wayne, Suite 412. The noise, turn it down." The line went dead in his hand. He stared at the phone for 3 seconds, then set it back on the cradle. The bass notes were still coming through the ceiling. Piano, someone singing off-key. A woman's laugh that could cut glass. It was 3:17 in the morning, and Wayne had been in bed since midnight, without sleeping 1 minute. His hands weren't shaking from fear. They were shaking from exhaustion. Tomorrow, no, today, now, he had a stunt scene scheduled for 9 a.m. Horsefall, 110-degree desert heat. He was 59 years old, 2 years past lung cancer surgery. 1 lung left in his chest. The scar tissue pulled tight when he was tired, and it was pulling now, sharp and insistent. He needed sleep the way a drowning man needs air, and the music downstairs was getting louder. Look, before we go any further, you need to understand what that stunt scene meant. This wasn't some quick cutaway shot they could fake with a double. Howard Hawks was directing El Dorado, and Hawks didn't do fake. The horsefall was scripted for the climax. Full gallop into a skid and drop. Wayne hitting the dirt at speed with cameras rolling from 3 angles. At 59, with 1 lung, if he missed the mark by 6 inches, if he landed wrong, if his body didn't cooperate, that kind of injury doesn't heal. It ends you. Wayne knew this, had known it when he read the script, had agreed to do it anyway because that's what the job required. But the job also required being awake enough to not get killed. The music got louder. Wayne picked up the phone again, dialed the front desk. A woman answered. Apologetic, professional. She promised to send someone up. Wayne thanked her and hung up. 10 minutes passed. The music didn't change. If anything, it got worse. Someone was murdering Luck Be a Lady, while what sounded like an entire percussion section kept time on furniture. Wayne called the front desk again. Had anyone gone to 312? Yes, the manager had spoken to someone at the door. They'd said they would keep it down. Wayne looked at the ceiling, at the vibrating, thumping, music-bleeding plaster above his bed, and hung up without another word. It was June 1966. Las Vegas, Nevada, the Sands Hotel. Wayne was in town filming, and the studio had rented the entire 4th floor for cast and crew. Early call times, long days, desert locations an hour north of the Strip. Wayne's suite was simple. King bed, small sitting area, window overlooking the neon chaos below. He didn't need fancy, he needed quiet. Frank Sinatra's suite was directly beneath him, Suite 312, and Sinatra wasn't filming anything. He was performing at the Copa Room 5 nights a week, and after hours, he threw parties, high rollers, showgirls, the usual Vegas life. Sinatra was 50 years old, still magnetic, still throwing parties like he was 25. Wayne was 9 years older and felt 90. They'd seen each other in the lobby earlier that evening, nodded, professional. Not friends, not enemies, just 2 men who worked in the same business, different politics, different lives. Sinatra was a liberal Democrat, Wayne a conservative Republican, but none of that mattered at midnight when you were trying to sleep and someone was playing piano through your floor. The scar on Wayne's chest, where they'd removed the lung in '64, was aching now the way it did when stress mounted. A reminder that falling off a horse tomorrow could end more than his career. Wayne sat on the edge of the bed and dialed 312 directly. It rang and rang. No answer. He hung up, and something shifted in his chest. Not pain, something cleaner. Anger. The kind that makes decisions easy. He stood up, pulled on his pants, his shoes, left the shirt untucked, opened the door, and stepped into the hallway. The elevator was at the far end, too slow. Wayne took the stairs, one flight down. His breathing was heavy, but not from exertion. Suite 312 was at the end of the hall, and the music was pouring out from under the door like floodwater. He could hear voices inside. Men laughing, a woman shouting something that might have been a toast, more piano, bottles clinking. Wayne walked up to the door and raised his fist, pounded hard, 3 times. The music didn't stop. He pounded again, harder, and this time the piano faltered. Footsteps. The door opened. A man stood there, 6'3", 240 pounds, dark suit, no tie, bodyguard, professional. The recognition flickered in the man's eyes. He knew who Wayne was. Everyone did. But it was 3 in the morning, and this was Frank Sinatra's party, and Wayne was just another old actor standing in the hallway in an untucked shirt. The bodyguard's voice was polite, but dismissive. It was late. Maybe Wayne should try tomorrow. Wayne's response was one word. No. The bodyguard smiled. Not hostile, just amused. Sinatra was entertaining guests. This was a private party. Wayne moved forward half a step. The bodyguard stepped into the doorway, blocking it, and put his hand on Wayne's chest. Not hard, just there. A barrier. Wayne looked at the hand, then at the man's face. Move. The bodyguard's smile widened, and he said something about this being real life, not the movies. Wayne stood still. 1 second. 2. Then his right hand came up fast and hard, backhanded, and caught the bodyguard across the jaw. The man's head snapped sideways, eyes going wide with shock and pain, and his knees gave out. He hit the floor. Wayne stepped over him, grabbed a chair from the hallway, and set it on top of the bodyguard's torso. Not to hurt him, to hold him. Stay down. Then Wayne walked into the suite, and the room went silent. Everything stopped. Notice what happens when a room full of people suddenly realizes the rules have changed. 8 people, maybe 10. It was hard to count through the cigarette smoke. 3 men in suits, 30-ish, money types, frozen mid-conversation with cigars halfway to their mouths. 4 women in showgirl dresses holding cocktails, one with her hand over her mouth, eyes wide. 1 woman slumped in a chair near the window, passed out, oblivious. And Sinatra, standing at the piano with a scotch glass in his right hand, left hand still on the keys, staring at Wayne with a blank expression, trying to process how John Wayne was standing in his suite at 3 in the morning, with a bodyguard on the floor in the hallway. Wayne stood in the middle of the room, white shirt, no jacket, sleeves rolled up, hair messed from the pillow he couldn't use, face red, hands in fists. Behind him in the doorway, the bodyguard was holding his jaw, blood on his lip, chair balanced on top of him, looking up at Wayne with something close to fear. Nobody moved. 5 seconds of silence, thick enough to choke on, and then Wayne spoke. Quiet, controlled. I called 3 times, Frank. Sinatra set his glass down slowly on the piano. Wayne took a step closer. The guests pressed back against the walls. I'm 59 years old. I got a stunt scene in 6 hours in 110-degree heat. Sinatra opened his mouth, closed it. Wayne kept his eyes locked on Sinatra's face. I asked nice. You laughed. Silence. Wayne's voice dropped even lower. Party's over now. The guests didn't wait for permission. 1 woman grabbed her purse. Another followed. The 3 men exchanged glances and moved toward the door without a word. Nobody made eye contact. They just left, slipping past Wayne like water around a stone. And 30 seconds later, the suite was empty, except for Wayne and Sinatra. Footsteps came running down the hall. A man in a hotel uniform appeared. The manager, 50-ish, balding, sweating. He looked at Wayne, at Sinatra, at the overturned chair, the scattered glasses. His voice came out panicked, but Wayne held up a hand. "I was never here." The manager's face went pale. "Yes, sir." Wayne nodded toward the hallway. "Your man outside fell. He was drunk." The manager started to protest, read Wayne's expression, and changed his mind fast. "Yes, very drunk." He disappeared. Wayne turned back to Sinatra. Sinatra was sitting at the piano bench now, staring at the keys. He looked smaller somehow. "Older. You didn't have to hit Tony," Sinatra said quietly. Wayne's jaw tightened. "He put his hand on me." Sinatra nodded. "Fair enough." The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was just the weight of two stubborn men, realizing they'd both pushed too far. Sinatra looked up. "You're right. I was being an ass." Wayne didn't respond. Sinatra stood, walked to the bar, poured 2 scotches, held one out. Wayne shook his head. Sinatra set it down, drank his own in one swallow. "Get some sleep, Duke." Wayne walked to the door, stopped, looked back. "Good punch," Sinatra said. Wayne's lips twitched, almost a smile. Then he left. The hallway was empty. Wayne walked back to the stairs, climbed 1 flight, opened his suite door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The hotel was quiet. No music, no laughter, no shaking floor. He lay down, closed his eyes, and slept for 4 hours, deep, dreamless. Remember this part, because what happened the next morning only makes sense when you understand how little sleep Wayne actually got. He woke at 7, showered, dressed, and drove to the location an hour north. The makeup artist noticed the dark circles under his eyes, added extra concealer, didn't ask questions. Wayne sat in the chair, silent, staring at nothing. When they called him to set, he walked out into the desert heat and mounted the horse without a word. First take, horsefall. Wayne missed his mark by 6 inches and hit the ground harder than planned. The crew rushed over. He waved them off, stood up, brushed the dirt from his shirt. Again, second take. Perfect. But it took everything he had. His chest ached, the scar tissue pulling tight with every breath. He was running on fumes, and everyone on set could see it. During lunch break, Wayne found a chair in the shade, sat down, closed his eyes for just a second. Someone shook his shoulder. "Duke, we're back in 5. He'd been asleep for 40 minutes. The production assistant looked worried. Wayne stood, brushed more dirt off his pants. "I'm good, let's go." Howard Hawks watched him all afternoon, finally pulled him aside. "You okay?" Wayne nodded. "Fine, just didn't sleep well." Hawks let it go. They had a movie to finish. Wayne finished the day, drove back to the hotel, went straight to his room, and slept for 12 hours without waking once. The next morning, he saw Sinatra in the lobby. They nodded, professional, nothing more. And that was it for 13 years. Wait, because here's what nobody understood at the time, what nobody could have predicted. That night in Suite 312 wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. 2 men, both used to getting their way, both too proud to apologize, both recognizing something in the other that demanded respect even when they wanted to throw punches. Wayne went back to filming. Sinatra went back to performing. They crossed paths occasionally over the years. Premieres, industry events, always polite, always distant. Neither one mentioned Vegas. Neither one needed to. But in June 1979, something changed. Wayne was dying. Stomach cancer. Final weeks. UCLA Medical Center. His daughter Assisa sat in the corner of the room, holding a magazine she wasn't reading, when a nurse knocked and said he had visitors. Sinatra walked in, Barbara Marx behind him. Sinatra was 63 now, sharp suit but older, grayer. Barbara kissed Wayne's cheek, sat across the room, stayed quiet. Sinatra pulled a chair close to the bed, sat heavily, and looked at Wayne for a long moment without speaking. Then Sinatra said, "Remember Vegas?" Wayne's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Which time?" Sinatra smiled. "Tony." Wayne laughed, and it hurt, but he laughed anyway. He deserved it. Sinatra shook his head. "You didn't have to hit him that hard." Wayne's voice was weak but steady. "Yes, I did." Sinatra's smile faded into something softer. "We were idiots." Wayne closed his eyes briefly. "We were young." Barbara stood, whispered something about getting coffee, and left the room. Sinatra and Wayne sat in silence. Two old men, one dying, one watching it happen. Finally, Sinatra stood. "Get some rest, Duke." Wayne opened his eyes. "Frank." Sinatra turned. "Yeah?" Wayne's voice was barely above a whisper. "Thanks for coming." They shook hands, long and firm, both knowing this was goodbye without saying it. Sinatra walked to the door, stopped, looked back. "Still a good punch, Duke." Wayne smiled. "A real one this time." "Still an ass, Frank." The door closed. Wayne lay alone, staring at the ceiling, and the memory was there, clear as glass. Vegas, 1966. The night he knocked on Sinatra's door. The night two stubborn men finally understood each other. Not through words, because neither of them were good with words when it came to things that mattered, but through action, through showing up when it counted, through respect earned the hard way. Listen, here's the thing. People forget about that generation. They didn't talk about feelings. They didn't process emotions in therapy or write long letters explaining themselves. They showed you who they were through what they did, and you either understood or you didn't. Wayne showed up at Sinatra's door at 3 in the morning because he needed sleep and nobody else could make it happen. Sinatra showed up at Wayne's hospital bed 13 years later because some debts don't get paid with words. The punch wasn't about anger. The hospital visit wasn't about forgiveness. Both moments were about the same thing. Two men acknowledging that the other one mattered, that the other one was real, that the other one deserved to be taken seriously even when it was inconvenient or uncomfortable or cost something. Wayne hit the bodyguard because Sinatra's party was keeping him from doing his job, and doing the job right was the only thing that mattered. Sinatra visited the hospital because Wayne was dying, and showing up for someone who once showed up for you was the only thing that mattered. Stop for a second and picture the hospital room from Wayne's perspective. He's lying there, body failing, career over, everything he built coming to an end. And Frank Sinatra walks through the door, the man whose party he crashed, whose bodyguard he knocked out, whose pride he challenged in front of a room full of witnesses. And Sinatra doesn't bring apologies or explanations. He brings himself, sits down, makes a joke about the punch, shakes hands, leaves. That's the language they spoke, and they both understood it perfectly. If you enjoyed spending this time here, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing. A simple like also helps more than you'd think. And if you want to hear about the time Wayne nearly got himself killed defending a stuntman on a different set, tell me in the comments, because that story involves a studio boss, a loaded rifle, and a decision Wayne made that still gets talked about 50 years later.